My name's Maria Walker. I'm from Glasgow City Council and I'm head of the English as an Additional Language Service there. And normally I come along to things like this and I talk about the work of the English as an Additional Language Service, the work that we do to support children and young people who are learning through English as an additional language. So in a way, I suppose we normally talk about how we approach teaching migrants. But today I'm going to do something slightly different because I'm going to talk about another role that I've been involved with in the council, which is much more around the whole world of promoting equality and with a particular focus on race equality. So kind of picking up on some of the things that Louise has just been mentioning at the end there. So that's what I'm going to do today. So why should we be teaching about migration is my first question. And I think there's lots of things that tell us that we really have to be doing it. If we look at the GTCS professional standards, there's very clear indications there that as a teaching workforce, it is our duty to prepare children for a world where migration is common, where we have respect for lots of people, regardless of their race, religion, gender, sexual orientation, etc., etc. All of these things are important, and it's very clearly stated in the GTCS professional standards that this is something that all of us need to be addressing. Similarly, the Equality Act, there's the public sector duty there, which puts a duty on all local authorities as public sector organisations. We have a duty to eliminate discrimination, to promote equality of opportunity, but also to promote good relations between groups who have the same protected characteristic and those who don't have the same protected characteristic. So again, issues of race, religion and language all come into that, but very much if you're teaching about, if you've got migrants, that's the kind of issues that everybody needs to understand in order to work together. And as part of that, I've been involved in Glasgow's Equalities in Education Working Group, which is chaired by Jean Miller, and I think Jean might be here today, I'm not sure, she was hoping to come. And we've been doing some work to make sure that all teachers in Glasgow, all education staff in Glasgow have got the support they need in order to meet that public sector duty. And particularly for education, one of our real focuses is on how we prepare our children and our young people and our staff to be able to promote good relationships between different groups. Also, there's the work around the UN Convention for Children's Rights, which also is very clear about the right that children have a right to education. They have a right to have their own language respected, to be respected for their own individual characteristics as well. So all of these things, it's, if you like, the kind of legal and policy framework that says it is important for all of us to address how we teach about migration. But a couple of things that are a bit more recent and some work that we've been doing is which have indicated to us that our learners actually want us to be doing this as well. So about a year and a bit ago, we were involved in an EAL thematic review, which was a review of our service. We looked at various different things. We used quality indicators from Higios 4 to focus on different aspects of the provision so that we could then have an action plan for moving forwards. And one of the QIs we used was 3.1, which is the one about equality, inclusion and well-being. And as part of that, we visited lots of schools and we spoke to a number of young people. Most of these were young people who were EAL learners. The majority of them were either themselves recent migrants or they came from a migration background. And we asked them, have you ever, in the time that you've been at school, have you ever in any of your lessons studied an aspect of life in your home country? Have you ever read a book or a poem or a short story written by someone from your home country? And right across the board, every single one of them said to us, no, never. And we really pushed, maybe even a wee tiny poem, perhaps a very, very short story, but there was nothing. And it wasn't a representative sample, it wasn't the kind of thing that would have got us a PhD, it wasn't that kind of research, but I was really astounded that there wasn't one single example. So there seems to be a bit of a gap there. More recently, we've, as part of our work around children's rights, we've done a survey in the city of children and young people, which we called it What Matters to Me. And it was an online survey. It was open from about the middle of December through to the beginning of February. So taking in the last week before the holidays and then the time when schools were in lockdown. And we asked lots and lots of different questions, and there was opportunities for children and young people to comment. We got about 5,000 responses, which is pretty good, considering most of these children weren't at school at the time. And the three things that young people said were most important, and think of the context when you hear this. Number one, family and friends. Number three was being at school. And number two was equality. And I'm going to give you a few wee quotes just to give you some idea of the sort of things that children and young people were saying to us. So this one here, I'm not going to read it to you because I can't actually see it because it's covered with photographs. Let's see if I could get it here. Learning about different people's cultures, religion, origin and family history before judging and discrimination. That was something that young people said we should be doing. We should be possibly banning racial slurs when being used in Scotland. Yep, definitely. And all around the UK. When people misuse them and say it's a joke, but it may not be a joke to the people and people's ancestors and families. Oh, and I should have said, if you're from the apostrophe police, these are exact quotes, direct lifts, so please don't get twitchy about it. I'm trying very hard not to. Third one, I think Black lives and LGBTQ plus lives need to be taught more in school. And I am sad that the LGBTQ plus community is treated so differently, bullied, like Black people and people with a disability. So I think it's quite interesting that young people have picked up on this intersectionality, that it's not just about, it's about race, it's about sexual orientation, it's about disability. These are all things that can cause discrimination. And the last one, I feel like school could have taught more in Black History Month and teach us about important things happening globally. And this next quote I'm going to show you in many ways is like a to-do list for anyone that's thinking about teaching about migration. Race and culture should be talked about more. Representation and diversity should be considered as part of the learning curriculum. We should take into consideration of talking about world issues, for example, Israeli and Palestinian conflict, the millions of Muslims being held in concentration camps, thousands of Black police brutality victims, bombings in wars, rape victims, sex trafficking victims. So if you want a manifesto for what we should be doing in schools, I think that one is, it's got quite a good list there. So I think it was really interesting that so many young people talked about the importance of promoting equality, of teaching and getting people to talk about things like that in our classroom. Now, there have been people doing that for many, many, many years. There are individuals who've been working really hard in their classrooms and their playrooms, who've been trying to promote things, trying to raise the discussion of race equality and of other equality issues. There's lots of organisations, people like WASDEC, for example, who've been producing stuff for decades. A lot of the big humanitarian organisations like the Red Cross, Save the Children and so on. There's a whole wealth of materials out there that people can use if they're looking to bring discussions of global issues into the curriculum. And there's been a lot of talk, you know, it's quite a common phrase now, we talk about decolonising the curriculum. There's been people doing that for years and years and years, but it's very unusual to find, I think, even a whole classroom or a whole school, a whole department, and certainly not a whole city doing it. And I think that's where we need to be looking. So what are we doing in Glasgow? First thing we said that it's really important that there's clear leadership on this issue. We've been given a steer by our children and young people that they want us to do something. So what are we going to do about it? Our Director of Education, our Executive Director, Maureen McKenna, has been very clear from the very beginning. Yes, she's totally supportive of this. And she has taken a lead in telling people that this is something that we really need to address. And One of the ways we've done that is through head teacher meetings that have taken place. Every head teacher in Glasgow has had a presentation, which is about looking at deconstructing what racism means, and getting them to start thinking about what we need to do in schools if we're really going to tackle this. And bear in mind that head teachers have listened to this while coping with schools returning after a pandemic, blended learning, preparing for it, all of that stuff that we've all been dealing with. So between August and Christmas, every head teacher was given a presentation. As a result of that, about roughly half of them have come back to us and said, this is something we really need to look at. This is a priority. We need to address this within my school. The small team of us have been working to produce a whole school package, which will look at things like, get into that discussion of things like systemic racism, but what is white privilege? How do you be an anti-racist as opposed to not being racist? And just giving people a good starter to make them think about these issues and make them think about them really hard. And it's not just about saying to people, here's some websites with good resources and here's some links to places. We think we need to win the hearts and minds first of all. So one of the things that how we're doing that is, because obviously it's going to have to be delivered like this is, electronically. So what we're doing is producing a video, an online resource, which could be used as the whole school. That's got presentation with different speakers in it, but crucially for us, it's got the voices of lots of young people in it. So we've got young people making comments and then statements about how you can address the things that young people are looking for. So we're hoping, it's in development at the moment, we hope it will be ready quite soon and we'll be able to pilot it in some schools, and that we hope that will start a good lot of thinking and a good lot of getting people considering and planning what they need to do. As well as that, of course, we do need curriculum resources. I know I said a minute ago, it's not just about that, but that is obviously important. So we have a couple of things going on. For example, there's a social subjects working group at the moment with people from all over the city, from different schools, different sectors, who are producing tried and tested, fully worked out curriculum resources for the social subjects area, all of them addressing and providing opportunities to talk about migration, to talk about race equality, to do the whole decolonising the curriculum thing. Within our own EAL service, we've got a development team that have been working really, really hard, who have produced many resources and lots of training resources, teaching resources that are available through an online site on Glow, which is now available to everybody in Glasgow. And all of the resources and everything that we're doing there, we're trying to do that whole thing around promoting equality, partly through making sure that the resources that we have meet the needs of our EAL learners, but also that they provide opportunities to have representations of different groups of society, to have opportunities to have discussions around racism, around equality. And the hope is that if we were to repeat our EAL thematic review in a couple of years' time, and we were to go and talk to young people who are EAL learners and said to them, have you ever studied anything that's come from your country? That they would say, yeah, we did. And that's what I'm hoping for. So thank you very much for that. Happy to take questions at the end, and goodbye.